In 2007, when I was around 12 years old, my family went on a trip to Kisk, Florida. We were joined by some of my cousins and family friends, which made it even more exciting at the resort. My cousins and I loved spending time at the kids club, and it was like a little paradise for us kids. There were always games to play, like board games, crafts, and group activities, which kept us busy all day. Now there was a director at the kids club who was in charge of watching us and running all the activities. His name was Dan. He was about 40 years old, very tall and skinny, and had a lot of hair missing on his head. Looking back, I'm amazed at how unaware and clueless I was about danger as a kid. I'm sure most kids were the same, but it's still shocking to think about. If I met this guy now, I wouldn't even want to stand within 5 feet of him. But at 12 years old, I thought he was great, like he was just some fun adult who ran all the activities. It's funny how much time and experience can change the way you see things. Anyway, back then it didn't cross my mind that there was anything off about him. We were all told that for some reason Dan was going to leave the hotel in a week. No one explained why, and I didn't really care or think too much about it at the time. It just felt like a small, unimportant detail to me. On our last day at the hotel, I lost my cell phone. It was a bright blue chocolate phone, the kind with the spinning wheel, if anyone remembers those. I told my parents right away that I couldn't find it. Since this was already the second phone I had lost that year, my mom got really mad. She told me that if I didn't find it, I would be grounded. So I ran all over the hotel trying to find my phone. I even went to the kids club to see if anyone had found it. Usually the kids club was full of kids playing games and having fun, but this time it was strangely quiet and empty. Dan was the only one there, sitting alone on a couch. So I walked up to him and asked, "Hey, Dan, have you seen my phone by any chance?" Dan looked at me and said, "Oh, so it's your phone?" "Yes, I found it and put it in the lost and found in the basement. It's a bit out of the way, but come with me and I'll show you where it is now." At that moment, I didn't really think about anything else. I just wanted my phone back. Not thinking anything was wrong, I just followed Dan without question as he led me to the back of the hotel. We walked for about 3 minutes until we reached the bottom of a staircase that led down to the basement. We were standing at the back of the hotel in an area where no one else was around. The walls were plain, unpainted concrete, and it looked more like a storage area than a place where you'd keep a lost and found. It was dark and gave me an uneasy feeling. Dan nodded and held the door open, waving for me to go down the stairs. For a moment, I was about to step forward, but then something inside me suddenly woke up. Maybe it was instinct, maybe it was fear, or maybe I just got lucky, but I felt deep down that something wasn't right. Before Dan could say or do anything, I shouted, "Never mind." I think I left it with my mom and ran away from the stairs back to the hotel lobby. I was really scared because something about that situation felt very wrong. As a kid who always saw the good in people and trusted everyone, this feeling was a big deal for me. I tried to calm myself down and decided I needed to look into it a bit more. So I went up to the hotel concierge and asked where the lost and found was. The nice lady at the front desk told me the lost and found was right there at her desk. She then asked me what kind of phone I lost, and when I told her it was a blue chocolate flip phone, she smiled even more and pulled it out of a box under her desk. "Someone turned it in here earlier," she said, handing the phone to me. "Wait, are you saying the lost and found isn't in the basement?" She looked at me kindly and said, "No, sweetie, the basement is actually under construction right now. They are just rebuilding it." Hearing that, my stomach dropped. Everything that had just happened with Dan started to make sense, and I realized how close I might have come to real danger. At that time, I was sharing a hotel room with my cousin, and she was the only person I told about what happened. But since she was only 8 years old, I think I really scared her with my story. Now I'm 26 and I still think back to that moment and wonder what would have happened if I had gone down to the basement with Dan the Animal Man. It feels like it was one of the most important moments in my whole life, and I'm so glad I knew to get out of there before it was too late. I lived in a pretty big house for about 10 years. The house had a lot of space, and one of the largest parts was the basement, but my dad always told me not to go down there at night. Even during the day, someone always went with me if I had to go down. The basement was dark, even with the lights on. My dad was always the bravest person I knew, and he never seemed scared of anything, but I noticed that whenever he went down to the basement, he always took our dog Max with him. It was around 2012 and I had a friend staying over for a sleepover. My friend came up with a plan for us to go down to the basement. Even though my dad had said no one was allowed to go there, we waited until my dad and my sisters fell asleep, and then we started going down to the basement. There were about 12 steps leading down, and when we got to the bottom, the floor was cold and hard. We brought flashlights with us so that if my dad woke up and went to the kitchen, he wouldn't see any lights on. In the basement there were about 3 bedrooms, a bathroom, and our laundry room, plus a big open area. Right when you entered, my dad always told me not to go into 2 of the rooms down there. When I asked why, he just said it was because there was glass inside, but I decided to ignore that and went into those rooms. My friend and I went into the first bedroom, but it was full of boxes and storage stuff. It was pretty boring for us, so we decided to check out the next room, and that's when things started to get a little strange. As soon as we entered, we heard some weird noises. We thought it might be my dad, so we stopped and waited for the noises to go away. The noises stopped, so we left the room and went to the laundry room, which led to the bathroom. If you kept walking straight, I went into the bathroom and the mirror opened up. I wasn't thinking much about it and just closed it. Then suddenly my friend pulled on my shirt and said he thought he heard my dad coming down the stairs. I got ready to get in trouble for breaking the rules and called out Dad, but no one was there. I thought my friend might be playing a trick on me, but then we heard more noises coming from the same second room we had gone into. I went back in to see if it was my dad, but instead I saw that the door to the heater was open. I went to close the door, but my friend said he had a weird feeling, so he stayed by the door to the room. After I closed the door, I turned around and saw my friend's face turn pale. He was pointing behind me. I turned around and saw a dark figure. We both screamed as loud as we could and ran to the stairs. My friend ran first and I followed right behind him. We could hear the figure running up the stairs after us. When we got to the top, we slammed the door shut. All the noise woke up my dad, and we told him what had happened. He said he had asked a friend to come over and hide in the basement to see if I would break the rules, but 5 years later my dad told me that it wasn't his friend after all. He said the house was haunted, but he didn't want to tell me back then because he didn't want to scare me so much that I wouldn't want to live there anymore. When I was a kid, I had an irrational fear of our basement, though if I do say so myself, our basement was kind of scary for a kid. It was a pretty big basement. There was an L-shaped couch right in the middle of the basement that sat right in front of a wooden support column. In front of the couch was the big old bow TV we had down there, which had all of our video game consoles plugged into. The layout of the basement was set up as a big circle that went around the couch. Basically, there was a booth and table in one corner, an old bar in the other corner, which had the door to the laundry room behind it, and then in the other corner closest to the stairs was the doorway to my dad's little workout room. My dad rented out the upstairs of the house to an old lady named Ruth, so we only had access to the first floor and the basement. My dad would usually hang out in the living room on the first floor, hence why our video games were all downstairs on the crappy TV, because our dad didn't really hang Out down there, I'm the youngest sibling. I have two older brothers. I was anywhere from 6 to 8 years old when this happened. My older brothers weren't home, so they must have been having playdates with other kids. It was just my mom and I home at the time. My dad was likely at work. Usually I'd be playing video games with my brothers in the basement, so I wouldn't be scared, but since I was alone, I remember being kind of creeped out as I walked down the stairs. That basement door sucked because it wouldn't stay open by default. It would just slowly creep shut unless something was propped in front of the door to keep it open. So it just made me feel even more isolated from the upstairs and my mom. I was playing whatever old video games I was into at the time alone on that gray fluffy couch. Any little sound in the basement would make me pause my game and look in whatever direction I heard it. There would always be creepy sounds that would come from the laundry room. And even though I grew to expect them, they'd still sometimes creep me out. They were usually familiar sounds though, and so when I heard an unusual sound come from inside the laundry room, I paused my game. It wasn't the sound of the laundry machine or the boiler clacking. It was the sound of something dropping to the floor and bouncing once or twice. I remember jumping off the couch and running upstairs to find my mom, saying there's someone in the basement, and I remember my mom's calm reaction and asking me what happened and then explaining to me that nobody is down there. To make me feel better, she went back down to the basement with me and she opened the door to the laundry room, turned on the light and looked inside for a few seconds. Then she shut the door and said there's no one in there. So naturally I felt better and she went back upstairs and I went back to playing video games. I can't remember how much time passed before I went back upstairs to eat a snack. My mom was already preparing dinner. I remember it being dark out now, which only added to my fear of the basement. The basement had 2 small windows which did allow some light in during the day, so at night it was just completely pitch black down there. I did end up going back down there though, and then eventually I heard the sound of the heater in the laundry room turn on, only it was extremely loud. I turned around and noticed the laundry room door was now open. I got off the couch and slowly walked to the laundry room door. It was pitch black inside of there. I was scared to turn on the light. I just wanted to shut the door. I gathered up enough courage to run at the door and slam it shut, and then run back to the couch. For some reason, I just felt safer on the couch. I guess for whatever reason, I didn't once think that it was strange that the door was magically open now, even after my mom had closed it earlier. The next thing I remember was hearing a man's voice from behind me, and at first my brain didn't register what I just heard. It didn't seem real at first. I turned around and saw some sickly looking man sitting in the booth in the corner of the basement with his arm on the table and his head resting on his fist. He said, "My God, how you've grown." I was frozen stiff. I couldn't even scream. I just looked at the man in the corner with my mouth hanging open, twitching. He slowly stood up in this crooked, hunched over posture, and it seemed like he was slowly starting to walk towards me as he said, "Your mother won't let me see you guys." I finally was able to scream, and I just bolted for the stairs. I was screaming Mom the whole way up to the kitchen. I slammed the basement door and locked it. I screamed and cried to my mom that there's a man downstairs. I saw the look in her face, and she was petrified. She called 911, and I strangely don't remember what happened to the moments before the police showed up. I just remember a bunch of police officers getting there and going down to the basement. I was with my mom and a police officer in a safe room while they found him, and the man they found was my uncle, my estranged uncle, my mom's brother, who was basically excommunicated from our family for being a child rapist. Our parents never wanted him anywhere near us, nor did my mom want any contact with him. He broke into the house and had been hiding in the basement for God knows how long. I didn't even know his face, as the last time I'd seen him I was a baby. I haven't seen him since then. He went back to prison for another 4 years for another sex crime. We don't know where he is now.